Hello, I'm FPX Toycat and welcome back to an episode of the Minecraft Bedrock Updated Adventures Let's Play. And I want to start today's episode by pointing your attention at the map wall. So this is 225 maps placed in a 15 by 15 grid, showing you 2,000 blocks from spawn in every direction, from my house and from this area right here. It's really interesting to look at, but everyone has the same question when they look at this map, and that is, why is there a square of different terrain in the center of all of that? That square is 864 by 864 blocks, and you might think that like, oh yeah, you must have terraformed that amount of terrain, or something along those lines. The truth is that unless you know the story of this channel and the story of Minecraft Console Edition, it just looks like a weird square that I must have done something with myself. And you know, again, honestly, for most of those people, it's as good as if I have done that, right? But sadly, this isn't the coolest terraforming project ever. This is the old style world, the only world that used to exist for Minecraft Console Edition until later the Bedrock version came along with its infinite worlds. And now I have an infinite world which starts all in this 864 by 864 cube. Which means that I kind of have this center part of my world that's very different to the rest in so many different ways. That is the date on that mountain right there, where I switched over to the Bedrock world and where everything became truly infinite for the first time. It was a big deal of a day that, again, now is just a date that blends to the background. Now this is just the Let's Play as far as anyone who's picked it up over the past 2 years is concerned, but there is that kind of historic thing to it. Because this world actually has been expanded 3 separate times. It's just the first expansion, which is the most interesting, because just to the south off here, by the way, should we just get rid of this pillager raid effect? But, you know, it might be valuable to get, but at this point, it's just a white sparkle that follows us. But basically, I have this big wall that separates the console edition size world that I used to be so in love with, the one I put most, you know, 2 years of, like, my first 2 years of playing Minecraft solidly on the same world. It's all within these walls. It's all within this same square that you see on that map, and that is why I wanted to make this the subject of today's video, because I want to use this area for something special, rather than just having it as it is right now, where it's got different terrain, there's a wall surrounding it, which is kind of funny, although in reality you can just swim below the wall, so it doesn't keep me out, it doesn't really keep anything else out besides like a lot of mobs, you could say. So there is a fun wall, there is a fun distinction, but I figured, why not make it even more special? Why not use this old style area and take advantage of some of those dreams that I had all of those years ago? And that's what brings me to this desert over here, which I actually did start back in the day, but only finished in the last year or so, because I have a desert which is entirely removed of sand, and which is, for the most part, covered in torches, right? I mean, you've probably seen something about this. It's ridiculous. It doesn't even look real, seeing this many torches. It looks like the most bizarre thing, but yeah, I placed torches all over a desert. It's kind of dumb, but one of the things that you get when you place torches all over your desert is an excess of torches, because guessing how many torches this took, you know, I would have assumed like 10,000, 20,000. No, it was like 35, 40,000, I think, in the end, maybe even more than that, because I didn't count some in the beginning. So we're talking about like a lot of torches that I made by the, you know, the 1,000, and as a result, I ended up with some spares, and why not take those spares that we have, as well as crafting our own, because there's a bunch of charcoal lying around, but why not take all of these spares and why not use them to do something fun with the outside? Because my wacky idea for a thing to do with this 864 by 864 area in the world, which is, again, pretty big in case you're curious, if you want to divide that into chunks, we're talking about, you know, like over, I think that'd be like 54 chunks, you know, end to end. So we're talking about 54 by 54 chunk area, absolutely huge, bigger than most people play with their rend distance set to. If you play your rend distance higher than that, then man, I envy that. But, you know, even if your rend distance is set that high, that's still way further than Minecraft. Bedrock does generate chunks, because the simulation distance is what determines how many things actually spawn and whatnot. Because it's this simulation distance here that determines how far away things actually spawn, how far away things are actually calculated by Minecraft, and therefore I figured, wouldn't it be fun to take this whole area and light the entire thing up? Wouldn't it be fun to make it so no mobs could spawn within this area? This area could be my safe zone, because that is a late game dream in Minecraft, right? Like, oh yeah, instead of having to think about the mobs that spawn, etc., why not just do something ridiculous and make it so they literally cannot, unless I want them to? There can be like a set aside area where they do spawn, and I think, you know, we can have an area for that, my big flatland plains, but everything besides that should be no mob spawning. And the simplest place to start with this sort of thing is with the borders, and that is why I brought up the map, because I have the border walls all the way around my world that don't really do too much right now, but why don't I make them both look prettier? Because you can do that. All you've got to do is, like, every like 5th block, let's say, place down a torch, and it makes this fun little pillar, which, as you can see, changes the entire look of the wall, and, you know, actually gives it a bit more structure and rigidity than right now it's just 864 cobblestone walls in a row. Why don't we go ahead and place some torches all the way around the wall? And that's what we're doing today. So let's place some of these. Because this is one of those basic building tips that can really be handy if you're making a wall that is like 10 blocks long, but what if you've got a wall that is literally 800 blocks long and you've got 4 of them? Well, we can use this same technique, we can use exactly 4 blocks between them each time, and we can see how good we are at doing this, because this is what we do on this channel. Big mass projects that sometimes you don't fully understand, but, you know, that hopefully by the end of this video will make some more sense to you, because people non-stop question like, why do you play Minecraft the way you do, Toycat? Why don't you play it the way my other favorite YouTuber, you know, plays it? Why don't you play it like this other person? I'm sure, you know, you could do better, more successful, get more views, get more gold, get more whatever else you're looking for, and given that that's a non-stop question, why don't we use today's video, which is a big exercise in placing torches, which again, as we place them, slowly looks better and better. Don't you think this is a more organized wall? Which, side note, now no longer spawns mobs on that side of it, but we've got to go further, so let's get back on it, and let's continue my thought here. Because if you don't know these Let's Plays, they're an opportunity to talk Minecraft and also talk real life, because I don't really have a vlog series on this channel, but some people question like what's been going on in the Toycat world, so here you go, here's my weekly update. And honestly, you know what, is it any surprise that during lockdowns that are affecting most of the world, I am currently inside for most of the week. I go out like 2-3 times a week to get food that is essential right from the store, and then I stay inside the rest of it, which to me is actually kind of great in its own way. Like, I think I would feel really awful if I was doing this to myself, but the fact that it's kind of happening and it's something I'm, you know, doing, arguably doing the world a favor with, because I'm stopping the spread of various, you know, things, you know, not just the big one, but also lots of other diseases, right? Because, I mean, like, any disease only thrives through contact with other humans, so if you are if you don't, you know, contact other humans, you can't spread them things, and they can't spread you things, and a lot of things die as a result. Which is actually, you know, I think that'd be one of the biggest, like, sales pitches that people could make for this. Like, all we need to do is literally, if everyone could, like, this isn't possible because people need to be in hospitals, people need to get food, like, and people would have to deliver it if you didn't go out to get food. But if you could have, like, an actual organized 2 weeks where everyone is, like, sealed in, their front doors do not work, we would not only kill, you know, current virus in the world or current pandemic going through the world, but you'd also manage to kill, like, a bunch of common colds. You'd be able to kill a bunch of flu strains, right? Like, again, one of the weird, like, side effects that will happen as a result of what's going on in the world right now is a lot of other diseases will be less able to spread. Because the only, you know, like, a super infectious disease like, you know, current one in the world, spreads, you know, a certain number of times per person. Let's call it, like, 3. Yeah, I think that's the current infection rate as we understand it. You know, every person who has it will infect 3 new people, but like flu strains and stuff are usually like 1.5, 1.4. So we're talking about like a lot of diseases that are just being hammered out by our ability to stay inside. And I love that I'm like vaguely contributing towards that, because when I live my life like this normally, like sat inside playing games, a lot of Minecraft, but a lot of other things as well. When I live my life normally like this, I feel kind of, you know, like, I guess guilty would be the best thing. Like, oh man, my life is wasting away. Like, during this past week, I've had so many like dreams of like, man, when this is over, I'll do X. You know, travel, go to the, you know, go climbing again, etc., etc., etc. I've got so many things that are building up, but like being under no obligation to follow your dreams is kind of cool, right? Maybe that's just me. Maybe like I live a system where I guilt myself too much. Because I've said this before, and I'll say it again. But like some people, the best, like, you know, like some people are driven perfectly all the time and can live a life which is wonderfully successful without needing to, you know, do anything to themselves. But the reality is, for a lot of other people, you need to be your own, like, worst bully, right? You need to be the guy who's like, oh, you couldn't do it? You're so lazy? Oh, what's that? You have time for dessert, but you don't have time, you know, to focus on this new idea that you're doing? You lazy monster. Like, you, you know, like, bullying is bad, and I think anyone else bullying people is bad. But I also think on the inside, it's a good thing for you to bully you. I can never be like, you know, bullied or, you know, controlled or manipulated by anyone else effectively, but I can do a very good job of doing it to myself because I know all the perfect levers. You know, like in every spy movie, or I've been watching a lot of Suits, because again, been inside, got some TV recommendations, but we'll go into that later. But I've been watching a lot of Suits this week, and a lot of it's like, oh yeah, it's down to leverage, right? Like, that's how you win a negotiation. You know, the leverage you have on yourself is insane. You can starve yourself to death if you want to. You know the places where you hurt, like, oh yeah, what's that? You haven't, you know, been on a date, and so I guess you shouldn't be going on dates in the current climate, but like, you know, you can find your worst things about yourself, and you can use those to hurt you, and that's kind of beautiful or brilliant. Yeah, I guess that's why, like, you know, people like to imagine like, oh yeah, the worst things in the world are XYZ. I think the worst torture anyone can withstand is the torture that comes from your own brain. And that's actually something that a lot of, like, major torture methods use. But we're not here to talk about torture methods today. I'm here to talk about what I've been up to. And again, long story short, I've been inside this past week, and that's been kind of great. But, yeah, I want to talk about, can I finally go to sleep and stop the rain? It's not quite dark enough. I really, really don't like the rain in Minecraft. If you like the rain in Minecraft, you might be a serial killer, is always my thoughts. Especially in Bedrock, where it lowers your render distance. Look how little I can see. It's just a row of torches that's nice, sure. But also it's like, is this what I want in the world? Is this what I imagined? I'm not sure that it is, personally. Okay, when you start to get hit by drowned tridents, you know it's time, probably, to go ahead and get out of this mess. Because I'm hearing a lot of those tridents. And that means we can finally go to sleep and leave behind this rain, this darkness, this just bad situation, and get into a new one, which, heads up, is a thing that will happen in the world. See, I don't want to talk too much about virus stuff, because again, I'm not a doctor, I'm just someone who has a serious interest in, like, history, and therefore, like, this past week I've spent a lot of time, like, diving into previous pandemics and, like, the responses, the things that happen there, because you'd be surprised at how much human trends repeat throughout history. Like, history is a fascinating thing, because it seems like it's just a record of all events, and on some level that is super handy too, don't get me wrong. Like, you need to know what mistakes past people have made so you don't make those same mistakes again. That is just, you know, fact that bears repeating in the world. But also, another thing I think is important is to know that history is also the, you know, like the learning of, you know, how things kind of really were. Like, we like to believe that, like, we're so much better than we were before, but I think the human brain hasn't evolved as much in the last, you know, 1,000 years, or even the last 100 years, as we like to believe it has. In fact, I'd imagine you know, humans and our behavior haven't changed very much at all in the last, you know, certain amount of time. So it's always worth keeping in mind, like, what were the solutions to the problems people had? To assume that they won't become problems is always a short-sighted mistake. But that's, again, that's a thought for another time, because I want to tell you about something that's been on my mind a lot, particularly in this past week and during this past time, because I was thinking about a quote. This is a super old religious text. We're talking like a few hundred years old, but the quote was just something like, "Oh yeah, here is the, you know, it's from one of the holy books, like from a really niche religion. It was just like how to avoid, you know, how to make the world a better place when it comes to sickness. And it's just as simple as like, if you hear there is a plague in another village, do not go to the village. If there is a plague in your village, do not leave your village." And it's like, there is the simple solution to all deadly plagues and diseases that humanity has faced. But like, it made me realize something that, like, I guess I always know on some level, and like I think everyone like knows on some level, but it's hard to admit, because when most of the time that people are like spouting about their beliefs, like their strongly held thoughts and motions, etc., they're usually talking about the controversial ones, or they're talking about the ones they believe in the most, which are the ones they get the most pushback elsewhere. So they're the ones that people want to find confirmation of their beliefs with. So they'll spread out there of their most, like, hateable positions. Like, oh yeah, I think that church is an essential service and lots of old people should still be meeting up despite current crisis. You're like, oh, that's a super mad looking thing. But I think the truth is like, especially when you look at, you know, let's look at some religions that everyone's like, let's say like a misunderstood on some level. Like if you look at the number of religions that tell you not to eat pork, they make up some, you know, super holy reason for it, right? Or like, oh yeah, it's that they're unclean, this, that. But the actual reason, once you dive into it, is like, oh yeah, it's, you know, there's this weird mystical magic explanation for just like, oh yeah, parasites in, you know, that animal were really hard to get rid of at the time. So there's a couple of religions in the world that don't eat pig. It's the same thing with certain, you know, regions and, you know, dairy. It's the same thing with certain places and a lot of practices. There was a practice that was a really bad idea at a certain time, and to convince people it's bad, you can tell them the facts behind why, or you can give them a story, and that story will stick around longer than the thing itself. And this is why things like, say, this wall, this is a, you know, physical embodiment of an idea I had a long time ago. You know, build a wall, keep the new world out. Like, just like have a separation between the old and the new. But what it is now, after, you know, the idea is long gone. What it is instead is it's a physical embodiment, like a set of rule. You know, the rule remains because rules last longer than ideas. A physical thing remains because physical things last longer than ideas. And what instead is stuck there is like, oh yeah, we have this wall that people see and they go like, huh, you deliberately built a big perimeter. That's kind of cool, I guess. Not understanding the reason behind the perimeter, not understanding that it was deliberately put here as like, oh yeah, a preservation of an old world. Instead, people just look at this and they see what it is now. I guess what I'm saying is that this kind of like destruction of the, you know, the meaning behind something, and instead just the physical representation of it being left behind, kind of combines what I was saying about history to lead us to believe that like people really were just like super stupid, even as recently as like 100 years ago, like, or 1,000 years ago. Like, man, I can't believe they thought that was a good idea, or like, you know, that wasn't a terrible thing. But the reality is, like, we face a lot of the same problems, just under, like, different umbrellas, and we like to believe that we're so unique for just having them right now. But, again, most of the things that we have dealt with a fair few exceptions, but, like, most of the things that we've dealt with before as a civilization. We've come to a conclusion with, and this time we might come to a different conclusion, which is kind of weird and, you know, interesting to say, but it is the reality of it. Like, oh, yeah, war is bad is our current position right now. You know, like, and I hope that stays, especially while we're fighting an invisible war, you could say. But who knows where that goes in the future? It only takes a certain amount of rallying behind to get people to subscribe to new ideas, is what I'm just trying to say right here. I guess subscribe is a poor choice in word when you're on YouTube, unless it's a genius choice in words, because you know what I want you to do to this channel. But I think I'll just put one in the middle of the two of these. Again, I had a strategy, and I didn't realize how many like tiny gaps I had in the wall, which are here for deliberate reasons, but makes you realize that we've got this solid wall. We think it's so solid it goes all the way around, and for the most part it looks like it does, until you get to the weird corners where you're like, oh yeah, I was deliberately quite pragmatic about where we placed it, and instead it just looks like, huh, I guess this was the official entrance and exit on what's going on here. Or I get, but yeah, like, this kind of like trying to rediscover the meaning for something is always a hard thing to do. It's kind of like when you're learning about a book in English literature, assuming that that's a class anyone else has to take. I'm not sure if that's just a UK thing, but assuming you study about books that are written in English elsewhere in the world, which I assume you do if you're watching this video, but like it's always like, oh yeah, the curtains were blue, and this is there to signify the fact that like, oh yeah, the entire civilization has been turned upside down, but the writer just really meant the curtain's blue. Like, some things are written as these super intense allegories. Even Dante's Inferno, which people now think of as just a representation of hell, was a satire piece. It was a piece trying to make fun of something, but eventually that original meaning gets lost and thrown into the wind. And that's why I wanted to talk about something which I guess, like, because again, this is an idea I've had. This is my feeling on the way the world should be, especially right now. While people are feeling like extra meaningless, like being inside, one of the problems with it is it just feels like putting life on hold. It feels like life is temporarily in this freeze phase, which, you know, again, personally, as someone who hasn't been in a freeze phase, as long as been like trying to do as many things as I can in a lot of different areas, it's kind of nice to go for a freeze. But some people don't want to go for that freeze. They want to, you know, like do a thing, and it's like, man, I hate that life is on hold. But I think now, like, using this time to like evaluate, like, so what exactly are, you know, like, if you are in a lot of quarantine, which is a lot of people, some people in a lot of fields obviously are continuing to go to work, but if you're on one of these things, it's now's the time to work out, like, so like, why, you know, what is the meaning, the purpose, everything else. Also, this is a weird stair house that I built at the very edge. We don't question it, okay? There's a lot of things we don't question in this world. This is in fact one of them. Yeah, that doesn't look as bad as I was expecting it to. And now we just continue over here, nice and easy. But yeah, one of the things that I feel like now is the best time to use to do is to work out, like, okay, so when, you know, when this is done, like, what do you want to do with that? One of the things I feel like leads to people, you know, like, you know, I mentioned like people's worst enemy is themselves. The worst form of torture is inside you. I think to some extent that is like a big thing, and one of the biggest crises in our world is that, you know, like, let's call it a mental health crisis, where people are having certain forms of issue. Like, everyone has struggles inside themselves. In fact, for many people that is their biggest struggle, and I feel like one of the best things you can do to help with that struggle, at least in my opinion, is to just have some something that you lead into the world with, some plan, some goal. A lot of people try to talk about what their thing is. Like, oh yeah, I think you need to follow my God. You need to follow my political, you know, belief system. Like, you know, I was just saying how humans have the same problems. You know what they wouldn't have it under? You know, extreme socialism or extreme libertarianism or this pragmatism or whatever word you want to use. Like, because again, I could describe myself some words. You can describe yourself some words. Everyone wants to push their words forwards and their ideas forwards in the world. And like on a like a medium term basis, sure, that makes some sense. But I think the thing that matters way more in the long term, the thing that matters to people's actual lives as opposed to just in meaningless discussions on the internet, is just having something that drives you forwards and something that you can use as your motivation. Like it's funny because so many people like they'll go through like think about the amount of work that some people put into let's make up some business. Like, oh yeah, guy makes a chain of restaurants, etc., and he just does it because he wants money, and he just wants money because he's been told that after once you can shop at Gucci, then you're truly happy. It's dumb, right? It's kind of like it's following the meaningless tokens in the world. But like if it leads you to do all those things which do create meaning, I mean, you start a chain of restaurants, you feed people, you kindle like a lot of conversations, and there's a lot of things that a restaurant can do that's good for the world. Like, just by having some goal, even when it's a dumb goal. Like, I think one of my biggest struggles with, like, so much in the world, like, so many of the authority structures you're meant to follow, whether it's school and then, like, generic normal people work, etc., is that, like, oh, yeah, there's gonna be someone who is convinced that, like, he's followed some ideas and he's used those ideas to do quite well, clearly well enough that he's somewhere above you, whether that's a teacher or, your boss or whatever else. And they're like, oh, you just need to follow these ideas too. So many, like, bosses and teachers, etc., what they value is people who can think exactly the same as them. They want to create more of themselves in the world. But I think the actual thing to take from it, the actual lesson of, the learnable life lesson in there, is the fact that you need something more than minute-to-minute pleasure, minute-to-minute thoughts to guide you. And even if those thoughts are dumb, even if those thoughts are a man in the sky that you believe in. And if you believe in religion, I'm talking about someone else's man in the sky. Your man in the sky is real. Their man in the sky is ridiculous though, right? Because they believe in one of those religions that eats pork and or doesn't eat pork, depending on what your one does. But like, you get the point that like, you can have pretty much any guiding principle. Even if your guiding principle is, I just want to make all the money I can. Or if your guiding principle is, like whatever it is, hopefully it's something that is good for you and those around you. But it doesn't really matter in the end, because if you have some guiding principle that keeps you going beyond, again, the minute-to-minute, like, make sure you because, like, if you just follow your minute-to-minute pleasures, you end up eating and then doing things that are fun at that time, and then you have a lot of gaps between those things, which suck, Like, eating is a lot of fun. I mean, I say that as someone who likes eating. If you don't enjoy eating, then I guess I envy that position somewhat. It'd be cool to, like, the way you, beat, like, let's say being underweight or overweight, is you eat more and or less. But, like, you want to eat a certain amount. How do you stop eating the amount that your body physically tells you to eat on a regular basis? You have a bigger overarching goal, right? Like, you say, I would like to be this thing for this reason, and then you make the thing happen for that. And that's why I'm kind of saying right here, is that all the time, everywhere, you see people pushing their ideas, their dream for success, sometimes doing so as a way to make themselves more enriched, in fact. But a lot of times, a lot of people are quite genuine with sharing the things they super passionately believe in. In fact, including me, I really do think that, there are some ways that you can play Minecraft that are better than the other ways. I think there are some ways to look at, I don't know, your current life that are better than the other ones. I think that, but I think the most important thing is just that you have some lens through which to view things that you're passionately connected to. You always hear, like, of a man with principles. Even when the principles are wrong, you're like, oh yeah, well, that's still kind of cool, right? I heard a story, like, this is a history thing I learned recently. It was about just in the 20 years before World War I, so before the world kind of tore itself apart. Also 20 years before the last pandemic of the level that we're currently facing. Wow, that's a fun fact, isn't it? But yeah, so we had like in the 1890s, France and Germany were, like, kind of forming as countries, is the simplest way to put it. And, France was losing military dominance to Germany. They didn't like that. And one of the reasons they concluded it was happening is their military secrets were being leaked. They blamed the leak on some, Jewish man, because anti-Semitism, very big thing in Europe at the time. Funny enough, like, not so big in Germany, but very big in, like, France, in Russia, in, lots of other Central European countries. Like, lots of countries just weren't so big on the Jews. A lot of people think that, like, oh yeah, there was just this one man who didn't like people of this one descent. But no, it's something that's been happening for many hundreds of years. again, I feel like it's not so big of an issue anymore, so people just think, like, how did people used to think like that? I mean, you know, you can see it, you can see some version of it in the modern world today. It's just much more coded in words, right? But anyway, so my point is that, like, so people didn't like people of this ethnicity at one point, sometimes combining it with the wealth that was often found of them, sometimes combining it with the fact that their religion allowed them to earn interest from loans, whereas most Christians were not allowed to do that sort of thing. You know, basically what I'm trying to say is, like, there was a lot of hatred towards a certain race, and so when they had this issue and they needed to find a scapegoat for it, they just picked a man who was in this situation. That he was a Jewish man. They didn't have any evidence, so they only had evidence against him. But they're like, aha, he planted some evidence that made it look like he didn't do it, which sounds so dumb as a defense. Again, since I've been watching Suits a lot, but that was his real defense. And basically, this guy who got sentenced to he got stranded on a remote island in French Guiana. This guy who literally had you know, like, just people blame him for no reason. He was in a country which hated him, but he loved his country so much that regardless of all of that, 20 years later, just after he was you know, pardoned as like, oh, turns out you didn't do it, lol. But after that all went down and he was, like, freed, rather than, you know, like, just, you know, going away from the country or whatever, he loved his country so much that he fought in World War I for that country, in some of its most famous battles, in fact. And the guy's name is Dreyfus, if you want to look into this story. But, like, that's an example of, like, yeah, that is someone who had a principle, even though it's a dumb principle. Like, I would never defend a country you know, that, like, falsely accused me on the basis of just my race or and ethnicity, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that one, or maybe I would actually. Maybe I'd love the UK even when they do that. I love America, even though they take me for a second round of questioning based on the fact that I'm a white male by myself, which is one of the suspicious categories. Like, right after, like, you know, the obvious group that everyone thinks about. In fact, even higher than that. Like, terrorism right now is a white solo person thing. Like, a group of white males probably not committing crimes. Single white dude, that's a dude with a desire to make some terror happen. And you might think that's, like, false, but, like, again, it's changed quite rapidly. But, like, I am rapidly singled out on the basis, you could therefore argue, of my ethnicity, but maybe I still love the country. Is that stupid? Should I dislike America for singling me out in that way? Or should I just be like, oh yeah, well, that's their thing. Sure. What I love, though, is the other principles behind it. You know, like, do I love some principle in America? Maybe I do. Should that be more important than my personal experience? Maybe it should. And that is what I'm trying to say right here. Okay, this is a really convenient place for me to just, like, place some torches on the edges anyway. And then we can start again over here. So we've now done half of the walls of this world, cover them in torches. I really like the effect so far. The uniformness, the brightness, like, you could see during the night too. Like, lighting it up was actually a cool thing. And here we are, going past my potion bottle. I actually need some scaffoldings. We'll go pick that up now, actually. Because it makes it look ugly anyway, so let's take it. Why do I have all these furnaces here? Did I use any of these? I was probably using one to make glass, right? Oh, and there's a bucket in here. How nice. Let's take... Oh, there's a bucket in here too. Is there a bucket in here? You better believe I am just collecting all the buckets today, including one filled with lava still. But yeah, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of, like, different thoughts and beliefs, you know, like, there's a lot of things that we categorize as different systems. Like, you might think, like, how is a political ideology, like, you know, related anyway? Or even, like, not even a political ideology, just an ideology of, like, I mentioned in my religions, explain Minecraft religions, like, oh yeah, so if you think about veganism, the way, you know, they form communities and the fact that they've got a set of rules they follow, even when they're hard rules to follow, and it's hard for them to do, they do so regardless, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's like creating a set of beliefs that you strongly believe in. Like, I believe in animal welfare, sure, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna, you know, make my own personal suffering so that something else doesn't have to, which seems dumb on the surface if you don't care about animals or you don't care about their welfare. You think that, like, oh yeah, natural food chain, of course, we're meant to kill them and eat them because that's what we do. We are humans. We're above them in the natural way of things. You can think about a lot of things in this same kind of you know, like, way, and they always seem ridiculous. And I feel like the only time they're ridiculous is if they encourage you to do harmful actions, right? Like, if a religion, political ideology, whatever, encourages you to do things that are bad for yourself as well as bad for the world, or even just, let's say, bad for the world. I'd say bad for yourself, like, whatever, like, you know, you can harm yourself, it's fine. If, you know, like, making sacrifices for yourself that, you know, help others out is something that we actually praise as people. Like, you might think, like, wait a minute, no, Toy Cat. But like, you know, the very concept of Jesus, right, is that he died for our sins. I never understood, and I still don't quite fully understand, like, how much of that's meant to be metaphor and how much is meant to be like, oh yeah, he got a message saying that he's got to die in exchange for the bad things we've done. And it's like, man, if he gets messages like that, I wonder what my messages will look like. Like, oh yeah, one day I'll get a message from a guy I've never got a message for who'll be like, oh yeah, you have to die because other people did bad things. It's just the way these things go, you know. Sucks to be you, am I right? But like you see what I'm saying, right? There's a lot of things that can lead you to do. There's a lot of things that lead you to make actions in this world, and as long as they don't lead you to make bad actions, like again, some people get really into their niche beliefs and defending their niche beliefs. That even that defending their niche belief becomes their belief. Like, oh yeah, what I really strongly believe in is I strongly believe that people need to start thinking about how I think. Even though these niche beliefs, again, most like political things are hundreds of years old. Like the concepts of, you know, like communism, for instance, you know, it's a 100-year-old ideology that was very successful. It spread from brain to brain so successfully back then, led to a lot of revolutions, not many of which were successful, of course. But like, the fact is that you have, you know, many different thought systems in the world. There's so many of them that we could go through. And I've been thinking about, like, you know, maybe like the advice I have isn't like pick the ones that I agree with, because I feel like anytime you have a system of beliefs that doesn't take into account the situation, it just takes into account like some broad rule, like never ever ever eat an animal, never ever ever you know, accumulate wealth, never ever ever be one of those dudes with the pointy noses that accrues interest on loans, like whatever, you know, like way you're, you know, never ever ever you know, eat you know, like pork or whatever, you know, wear a hat because that's important or whatever. You know, like whatever set of things you come across that are like all the time, regardless of context, are usually going to have some flaw in them, in my opinion. But like, you know, if despite the fact that I can't really endorse any of the things I've spoken about, I just find them interesting to talk about. I feel like whatever, find one that works for you, find one that you love the concept of, because trying to make the perfect decision, like, based on everything, like a judge would, like, let's weigh up all the pros and cons here, isn't something we can realistically do ourselves in every situation. The reason we need these big, like, broad terms of, like, never eat an animal, never, you know, consider doing this or doing that, is because it's really hard to weigh them up. And if we're allowed to do so ourselves, what we will end up doing is just concluding, like, oh yeah, the thing we want to do naturally. Again, the lazy, sit at home, eat, you know, take out food, and, you know, just sleep 12 hours a day, play video games and the rest, which actually, you know, I mean, that's what I've been told to do by my government, to be fair. But like, that's the sort of thing you can end up with, and you can end up justifying it, and that's why you should believe in something. By the way, I actually have a fair few torches on this wall on this particular section already. I guess because I fly over this a lot, and maybe there were mobs that were bothering me. But it's kind of fun going through and, like, removing the torches, which were kind of oddly placed, and giving them, like, a sense of actual, you know, like, making it a very fixed amount between them. It's pretty nice, in my opinion. And then about 50 blocks later, they just magically stop, and we've got to start placing them ourselves. Fair enough, I guess. But yeah, even something as simple as, like, torching up your world, making sure that mobs don't spawn, it's a really simple thing to do, right? It improves your life so much more down the line, but it's not so fun, and it's never, like, a glamorous thing. I mean, some people like to use glowstone, and that's fun for them, but no one really ever loves the process itself. No one ever is like, yeah, what I want to do right now, more than anything, is I want to place some torches down in Minecraft. It's not an exciting premise for a thing, but it is a very important thing to do. And if you don't have any reason to do so, if you don't have a project you're working towards in Minecraft, if you don't have a reason for your survival world to exist and for whatever else to go on, then you won't, you know, do it, and you won't do something that will actually help you out in the long run. And I guess that's kind of what, I guess all of this is just, it's going to come to the caveat of, like, most people aren't going to be moved by this, and that's okay. Most people won't be changed by this in some amount. But what matters is just, like, saying what I think, giving the ideas to you, and you can think about them, or you can not. I feel like something you have to do as a person, whenever you say any idea, especially one that's, like, a lot of thought or a lot of, like, change to life or whatever else, is you've just got to admit, like, there is, you know, you've got to disregard them almost yourself. You've got to admit, like, hey, there's a good chance you disregard these ideas, and that's okay too. If you have an idea that you think is so important that people can't disregard it, it's probably not. it's probably not that way. And I feel like if more people thought this way, we'd have fewer issues. Like, so many people, you know, like, if we take the current situation in the world that is happening, don't know if you guys have heard about it. Probably haven't. Very, very niche, small thing. Definitely isn't locking people inside of their homes right now. But, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, people who go outside are always bad and delaying this for everyone. And it's like, well, I mean, actually, we've deemed that for some reason there's some set of reasons we can go outside. We don't know precisely what it is, but we know there are vaguely reasons out there. You know, we've deemed that there are some set of reasons, you know, for you to go to work still, you know, or stop working from home. What are they? We're not really too perfectly sure on that one. I always get, like, paranoid that we've got a gap in here. Like, I'm sure we'll have finished and there'll be one torturous out of place. They'll mess up the entire thing. Who aren't on board with that, who think that the system is super dumb, that they should do something else. And I think, like, living through your first, like, big historic-ish moment, I don't actually think this will be hugely historic, but, you know, I hope that this will be, because it'd be cool to live through history, even though I don't think that it is on some level. But, like, living through your first, like, crisis-style moment or whatever, it's kind of cool because it reminds you, like, oh, yeah, it's not how it's portrayed in movies and in history books, because real life is complex, filled with complex people, and stories simplify those things down. And that's how it would have been thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. Even if, you know, a story, a book, oh my god. So yeah, I guess that's my kind of thinking on that. But, you know what, we are in a time where people are indoors a lot, and, you know, the truth is, like, again, like, another thing is, like, this is objectively a bad time, right? Nah, actually, a lot of people gain and a lot of people lose from any time of upheaval. It's the biggest, like, time of, like, I guess, mobility, you could say. A lot of people, through arguably no fault of their own, going down. A lot of people, through arguably no merit of their own, or maybe through merit of their own, you can be the judge of that one or decider on that one, are, you know, going up in some way. But either way, we're at home. We're at home a lot, right? We're watching a lot more media. According to YouTubers, that's true. Apparently, you know, like, one of the interesting things is, like, a lot of YouTubers are having, like, have the craziest marches ever or whatever. Because if you have a lot of viewers who are in the school ages, because if you have someone who's work age, like, if you have, like, a 20 to 25 demographic, you know, a lot of them might be off work or not find work or whatever. But the reality is that most of them are still going to, oh man, that actually perfectly lined up. I like that. But the reality is like, you know, most people still have work or some form of searching for work they need to do. But what most, you know, everyone who is previously at school doesn't have it. So a lot of YouTubers are having like this huge boom, like especially Minecraft YouTubers who aim at young kids. And I guess that's like a super cool thing for them. A lot of like, you know, like Netflix is having this like super, like, it's like a blessing and a curse. Like they've got a lot more people watching, which sounds awesome, like more people watching Netflix. That's good for the numbers, good for everything else. But because Netflix is a pay monthly subscription, it's just a lot more people using the servers at the same time, which means they actually have to pay more. Like they make a lot less money for all of this. But anyway, so I've been watching a lot of Netflix too, as well as a bunch of YouTube, all over the place. And by the way, if anyone has been laid off from a job or has, you know, doesn't have college or school or whatever else you have anymore, thank you for choosing to watch this video. The reason I wanted to make such a long Let's Play, the reason I committed to such a long, weird project, this is the start too, by the way. This is just the outside walls before we can work on the inside. But the reason I committed to such a long, weird project is just because, like, oh yeah, a lot of people like these podcasty style things. They like the you know, to hear the things. Again, even if you super disagree with me, the point is I think people enjoy the talk. I think people enjoy the talk a lot more when you're willing to say, like, hey, actually, you know what? Who knows what's going on right here? If you admit what everyone kind of knows on the inside, that you're human and that you have just as much doubts as people, I think people care about that a lot more. And a lot of YouTubers have, like, the ego thing of, like, not being willing to say when that's true. But, like, yeah, you know, I have no clue what is and isn't objectively fact. I just know that some people want to have a conversation, and some people like the TV. Like, some people like talking TV. Again, these aren't, like, things you have to watch. These are some things I enjoyed, and if you enjoyed the reasons I enjoyed them, you can give it a watch too. So, first of all, I've been watching Suits again. I watched Suits in the most disjointed way you humanly can. I watched, like, seasons 1 through 3 and then got bored, and then, like, some other time was like, oh yeah, that show was kind of good, I'll try watching it again. Skip, like, half a season or two, like, maybe, like, so I watched, like, season 4, 5, and then stopped watching, and then watched season 6, 7, and then, like, I think, oh, like, 8 maybe too. and then there was a year wait until 9, and then I watched that too. So like I watched it in the weirdest like separation of phases across like a decade or something like that. And there was a lot of like in things I didn't get without watching the start of the episode, because suits is something which I guess must be more common now, but it does something really interesting where it like every episode it reflects on the things you need to know for this episode from previous ones, but it's like, you know, it almost spoils things. It's like, oh yeah, this character's in the intro, so he's going to be in the episode itself, and it's, you know, it still manages to surprise you, I guess, but like, oh yeah, they reference how, you know, this guy is a fraud, and it's like, okay, so that's going to be a key theme in this episode, I guess. It does something really interesting with that, but like, anyway, Suits, what is my recommendation? Because I watched it in a weird way. I'm rewatching it, so it's good enough for me to watch a second time, and enjoy watching my second time just as much as the first, so that's a good thing, I guess. But yeah, Suits is a show about a law firm, which is why it's called Suits, because you know what? They all have to wear suits, and they're called Suits for that reason sometimes. And yeah, the thing I find fascinating about Suits is like this kind of like peak. It's obviously like a mostly false peak. It's not in reality how lawyers are, but it's like a sensationalized version of what a law firm is like. You know, there's a lot of like cool movements in there. Like, oh yeah, it's the modern day versions of like battles. You know, we used to have like a fight to the death for certain things, or like, oh yeah, you used to have, you know, trial by combat. We used to have a bunch of systems in play to like resolve disputes. Nowadays, it's in a courtroom, and it seems like it's so far removed from that. But you see, like, oh yeah, actually, it's kind of cool because, you know, it's all about tactical plays. It's like this. It's almost like a game. There's game theory to being a lawyer, and the guy in the, you know, Harvey is very good at that game theory and is very good at being a lawyer, or at least that's what he'll have you believe. Maybe it's different in the show. Who knows for sure? So yeah, Suits, I've been watching it. Brooklyn Nine-Nine just got a new season in the UK. I know it's got to be like a year old in America by this point, but there's a new season. It's pretty good. It's not as good as the previous season, so like, if you haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's a police show, but comedy. Is that enough of a sales pitch? Is it not enough of a sales pitch? Well, that's all the sales pitch you get, okay? That's all the sales pitch you get. And otherwise, Black Mirror is one of my eternal recommendations. People always say like, oh yeah, you just what everything you met, like I spoke in an episode about like, what if something could replicate you, then doesn't that prove how you're not as important? You know, your day-to-day actions aren't important. It's like your ideas behind you. And everyone's like, you're talking about Black Mirror episode. It's like, yes, I have watched the Black Mirror episode in question, but I'm talking about the idea behind it in abstract terms without saying, here is just the Black Mirror. Like, I feel like media that just says, oh yeah, it's like this other show, and then assumes you've watched it, is a terrible idea. But like, Black Mirror is so good that I reference it, and people see when I'm referencing it, and they go, yeah, I get that one too. I guess this is really like Toy Cat's therapy session. Toy Cat complains about the lack of common sense in YouTube comments for 40 minutes. No, it's really interesting because on YouTube, there are people, like, again, a lot of people tell me how much they appreciate these things, etc. There are some really well-written comments that are positive, as well as some really well-written, constructive feedback, right? Like, people who have disagreements and write it in a way that is actually helpful. But 99% of YouTube comments is people writing comments for other people and not the uploader. Once you go past a certain size on YouTube, and sadly, I guess we've reached that point, YouTube comments stop being about that. And that's kind of why I like live streaming on some level, I guess. I like that there is this, you know, like, there's that one-to-one response level. People are talking to you. Some people are very, you know, not fun in that way. You know, we always have people who are, like, out to get you almost. Like, they don't like you. They're just there. They're enjoying your entertainment, but they don't like you, the person. And there are people like, oh yeah, I like you, the person. Here's a thing I have to say. Some people do, you know, with financial attachment, which is crazy. But even when they don't, just like people who are like, oh yeah, it's awesome to be here, etc. I love seeing that in the live chats. I wonder why this is here. But there's a certain fun aspect to YouTube live streams where like, oh yeah, every week we get, like, you know, we do it actually, like, it's been like most days because I've been inside all the time, which means lots of live streams. It's been great, but it's this thing that we do, and it is very fun for us to do. I like it a lot, is what I'm trying to say here with way too many words. But so yeah, I've been doing a lot of YouTube live streaming recently, and I've been enjoying the YouTube live streaming. So if you want something out, there we go, Netflix recommendation, watch Toy Cat live streams. But no, I really want to talk about the feedback thing of like, oh yeah, feedback the quality of it tends towards 0. The fewer people who are leaving it there for you, but leaving it there for the world. And this is, I guess, the problem a lot of things have. Like, you want people to watch your thing and to tell you about it, but you can't have a way of just getting the thoughts straight from people's brains. Like, when you put something else out, put something out into the world, there are so many details you want people to notice, but the only thing they get from it is like the vague sense of, is this not the right number of blocks? Oh, it is. The only thing you can really work out from that is like, did people generally enjoy it or generally not? You know, like and dislike on YouTube. There used to be a 5-star system. Now it's just, was it good or was it not good? You know, you simplify that huge interaction down to like, oh yeah, get G or not G. I need to go get some more sticks, by the way, so I'll go do that. So this right here is my wood factory. It is inside the walls of the now lit, you know, console versus, you know, bigger world divide, as you can see. And yeah, if we go inside of this, this is just a place where I chop down trees and then they grow endlessly. It's a good way to get wood without chopping down forests. Sometimes I like to get wood while chopping down forests, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you like to do it this way. And yeah, the cool thing is, like, you get wood from the trees, or you get logs from the trees, I should say, because wood would be the... I guess wood is a kind of weird thing to say, but like, this is an oak log. You get wood logs from the tree, and then when the leaves break, they give you some sticks too, and you can use those things combined to make some torches. Although we have enough charcoal, we literally just need the sticks for now. And yeah, we'll do a little bit of tree chopping, I guess. I think for this whole light up the world project to go well, we're gonna need a lot of stuff to go down. So like, we might have to do like an entire mini podcast style thing on just chopping down trees. And you know, actually, since I do so many live streams, which are kind of like the replacements for the podcast style videos, they're a replacement for a lot of other things, would it be cool to do a Let's Play Monday, where it's just like going back to the old thing of just, oh yeah, let's chop down trees, but for X number of minutes or whatever? Or does that sound like hell? I'd love to know what you think, actually. Again, comments down below. You can tell me, is that a great idea, or is that the worst thing you've heard? Because I think one of the cool things about being around on YouTube for so long is this kind of, this interesting thing where things phase in and out over and over again. And the same thing I was talking about in the world, where like, oh yeah, the same ideas come up over and over again. They seem like they're different, but it's the same thing, just in a different coat of paint or whatever else. The exact same ideas float around on YouTube all the time. You know, at least on, you know, like, I would say so. Like, you see trends and waves. You see how Minecraft went from being the most popular game on YouTube in 2011 to like, oh yeah, well, it's kind of like, you know, it's like, it's the game that hardcore people play, to like, oh yeah, it's the most popular game again last year, to like, now it's one amongst the pack. I think, like, as far as numbers go, Minecraft just objectively is the most popular game on YouTube. But like, you know, if you don't believe that, sure, I mean, like, go look up the numbers. But if you don't believe it, like, you can still see how, like, even if you're the most skeptical person, you'd be like, oh yeah, but Minecraft is definitely one of the most popular games out there, right? It's definitely a most popular game. And the fact that, like, I imagine, again, this seems to happen every single year, every update, there's always this, like, trend towards, like, oh yeah, Minecraft is super, you know, it goes from being the first most popular game by a little bit to, like, this is the game everyone's checking out for the new update. And then it kind of, you know, it goes through peaks and valleys, cycles, etc. Every Minecraft YouTubers who covers the Never updates having, like, big view increases right now. Will have a small decrease in the, like, you know, the October, November time of this year when there's a dead period. Or actually, I'd say, like, I guess, like, August, September, like, just before the Minecon reveal. And also, you know, for people with younger audiences when their fans go back to school. Yeah, there's a lot of, like, peaks and valleys that happen over the course of a Minecraft year. You know, calling it a Minecraft year is a fun term. Also, is that the right number of blocks? I feel like we made a mistake. It always looks, oh, we did actually. 1, 2, 3 here, and then it should be there, which means this should be there, which means that's a weird place to put that, but I guess we're going to stick with it anyway. This is the place where I left my old 360 world. If you go back to, so actually, wait, I should have mentioned this way earlier on. Damn it. Okay, so this is a message. So I left this way too late in the video to make this point, but you know what? This is for those of you who like the Let's Play. Maybe you've only been watching a certain amount of time, you want to watch all of the videos. I really don't recommend watching the very first episodes, but a lot of people do insist on doing it. You know, they're like, maybe cringe, maybe interesting. Some people, a lot of people like say, like, I can't predict the future, and there are a few moments in there it's like, oh yeah, I mentioned a thing that turns out to be true, or that turns out to be entirely wrong. Like I said, buy Nintendo stock, because the Wii U is going to be a big hit. I was wrong about the Wii U being huge, but I was really right that you should have bought Nintendo stock. So, like, you know, turns out something about a broken clock being right twice a day, except, you know, I'm not a broken clock. And I'm not right twice a day. I'm right a lot more than that. Yeah, there we go. But no, so I put all the Let's Play episodes in a big old playlist that you can check out if you want to. And if you don't want to, you can not check out. That is the cool thing about the internet. You have free will, friends, and you can use that free will however you want. Oh, here's half a village that generates to my world. I was so sad it was half a village. I could have had so much more if it just generated a few more blocks to the right. But again, cut off by the edge of the world. A sad reality we see non-stop here. But yeah, so I pulled the Let's Play into a big playlist. I went through and did it this week. It took a lot of time, but I was like, you know what? People, want to see some Let's Play episodes. Let's give them a way to see the Let's Play episodes that they would like to see. Seemed logical to me. Right? Maybe you disagree. Oh, that rhymes. How nice. But yeah, so I figured like I'd do that because like I don't know. Right now, a lot of people are going through some stuff, and like I want to do my best to help. And maybe it seems like the most self-serving thing in the world to be like the way I'm helping is by giving you an easier way to watch my videos. But there's a link at the bottom of the description. This is really late in the video, so if you're watching this, you probably do care about that already. But just in case that seems super self-serving, you know what? I also think that during this time, great time to pick up some form of knowledge. Doesn't matter what it is. Just like learn about some stuff. And I think the #1 source of knowledge in the world, that I think it's dumb that teachers don't accept in certain cases, but like, the #1 source of knowledge in the world, do you know what it is? It's Wikipedia. I gave $1,000, last, year as a thing for this. And you know what? I'm going to give some money to Wikipedia right now. How much am I giving to Wikipedia, you ask? Well, I don't know, just to make sure that previous comment isn't too self-serving, $446, $1 for every episode of the Let's Play. So there you go. Now I've given more money to a charity than I'll ever make from just putting my playlist together the way it should have been and giving it a quick promote here. And yeah, if you want to watch that playlist, you can. And now you know it's not this weird self-serving way of like, haha, if they check the playlist, they'll see more of my videos. Because I'll be honest, back in the day when I first started YouTube, one of the reasons I thought Let's Plays were like the best way to grow a channel was like, oh yeah, someone watches one of the Let's Play episodes, but then get this, there's they'll want to watch more of them. It's the same format, and if you have a playlist, because back in the day you could mandatorily put things in playlists, then people will watch more and more episodes, etc. I actually did think it was like a good way to grow the channel and arguably make money back in the day. And there you go. So you don't think that's just a continuation of that same strategy. Now you know. I've just given more money by putting it together and mentioning it now to charity. Plus, I mean, I gave $1,000. I'm on the major benefactor page for Wikipedia, which I still quite like. I like the I'm a benefactor. That term's always used to describe supervillains in movies, and maybe I am a supervillain. Like, am I a bad person if I do bad things, but then I also give money to good causes? That's the debate our society has, non-stop. I don't think it's a debate I can help you with any amount. If I'm like a terrible person inside, like, actually, you know what, Toycat actually, okay, wait, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to place our torch there. It sucks to do it this way, but it's better than the alternative. We'll place the torch inside this house, and now we can call this, I think, a pretty good, well-torched border. We've defended our borders from the... This was a joke, like, way back when we first built it, but I built the wall, and I kept the new world out, and I think we've actually done a pretty good job of that today. So yeah, we now have a completely fortified wall. I could show you in... Actually not. I'll be like, I could show you slowly. I'll just fly up over it. I can just show you that, like, yep. We now have a wall that is fully lit up. I think it'll look better at nighttime, because obviously that's a thing. But now the question is just like, so the bits of the rest of it that we are torching up, I mean, we've torched the desert, we've torched a few places. The question is like, okay, so what do we do next? And the answer to what we do next is we need to torch everywhere. And there's a few ways we can do this, and this is one of those things I want your feedback on, I guess. Because the most efficient way is to place 6 blocks between every torch. So like, torch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the most efficient way to do these sorts of things. And then you do that diagonally. I totally saw that creeper coming. I totally saw it. I just let it blow up to mess with all of you. I actually was hoping that creeper would like drive some people crazy while I'm talking about a major point. But whatever. I have access to gravel now. Who's jealous now, friends? I think you'll find it's all of you. But so there's 2 ways to place torches. The most efficient way. But also there's a less efficient way that's just easier to do, and also... Oh, there's another pillager raid. See, this is why I drank the milk earlier. There's just one every hour or so that you play. So I always have one every Let's Play. I get one every live stream. It's just a fact of life at this point. So there's the most efficient way, Or you could place torches in a much less efficient way. So say you do the same like 6-block gap between every two right here. But then you also make it into like a square pattern. So this is effectively doubling the number of torches that you use, but it's way easier to track because you're making a square instead of a weird set of like diamonds. You know, Minecraft is a square-based game. And also, it takes into account height differences. So like even when you're going up a mountain, this will work. And also it might look better when we're done, like just long rows of torches all the way across the world. Because again, we can go, what are these between them? Like 5 blocks again? So 5 blocks in between each row of torches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we do this across the entire world long enough, and it gets easier as you go along, it actually looks better when you're done as well. It's easy to do. It looks better. It just uses more torches. Do you think that's a worthwhile trade-off, Internet? Because I think, given we're going to spend a lot of time breaking down some trees, because, again, all we have to do is we break down enough pieces of wood, and then we put them in our big old blenders, or furnaces as they're called, and then magically the wood burns the wood, turns into dead wood, and that dead wood combines with our non-dead wood to make torches. It's a weird system, but you better believe it's the system that makes the whole world work. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing in the nearest future. I want to light up this entire world. Is it a dumb project? Yes. Are we starting it anyway? Also yes. And I hope you all enjoyed this super long Let's Play as a way to announce that fact. If you did, like the video and let me know. And if you didn't, then you know what? We're an hour into this. If you didn't like it by now, you know, you reserve your likes for different things. That's fine. You do what you want to do. I'll do what I want to do, which right now includes saying goodbye and wishing you all a happy Monday. And indeed, happy April. Because, yeah, April's the scary time. This is where things get real. So enjoy your April, and I'll see you in another one. Goodbye.